What's going on YouTube? Thanks for tuning back into another video. Today is kind of an anticipated video as it is that we got new parts for the Integra. We're also going to be showing you some stuff about torquing the cylinder head, ARP hardware, ARP lubricants and stuff like that. So when you do these kind of things at home, you can have kind of the tips and tricks that we use to try to make our engines nice and safe and efficient so you guys can pick it up at home. That being said, we are going to start this video off. The beginning is going to be a little bit of an unboxing. So if you don't want to look at the little unboxing bits, you can skip forward a couple minutes into the video and actually see the action of it. But if you do want to stick around for the clip, we're going to start that right now. Let's get started with the video. All right, so without further ado, we are going to start the unboxing right now. Pretty basic, we have this large box in front of us, and if you guys have been following our Instagram page, @SlowIntegra, you know that we've been waiting on this specific package to come in, and we are super stoked to be able to open this up. Before I actually get this unboxed, huge shout out to the family over at SB Machine. They're a West Coast machine shop who showed a ton of love, reached out to us to work together on this project specifically. The cylinder head for La Fea, our front wheel drive turbo Integra, and honestly truly blessed and honored to be able to actually have one of their cylinder heads to provide all the flow into the car and make some power with it. That being said, right off the bat we do have some stuff from our boy Brandon who lives over in California too. If you want to check out his Instagram, I'll link it down below as well. I think he said he was going to send some seasoning for some steaks because we're always like cooking and whatnot and posting it on Instagram. Let's see this. I believe it's just packaging paper, or was that the seasoning? Let me check real quick. Packaging paper. One of the products that we actually got, a lot of the stuff in the cylinder head is Vtec, so we're trying to go with the best of the best. We don't want to cheap out on anything, especially when it comes to important parts like cylinder head. That's why we run Vtec components. These are the Vtec lost motion assembly, the LMAs for the B-Series Vtec head. Got our package right there. Oh, and looks like this is the rub that Brandon sent over. Shout out to Brandon. Smells good for like steaks and whatnot. We're gonna be using that in probably the next couple days. Got all the packaging out the way. Put this right here. Let me tell you, we've almost always used Vtec components. In this case, we use the Vtec valve springs, retainers, keepers, the lost motion assembly, the valves, everything to work all together. They're the best of the best, and that's what SB Machine sits for. Like, they stand for the best of the best. They want to make sure they have the best products into their cylinder heads, and this right off the bat just looks amazing. Okay. And if you guys have been on the channel for at least, I think I did this like a year ago. We did port out the cylinder head ourselves. This is hand porting done by myself on the intake as well as the exhaust side. And on the exhaust side, you can see we tried sanding and polishing up the cylinder head as well. This I did about like a year ago, just to try to make it a little bit nicer. But yeah, very stoked with that. You can still see the die that they use on the cylinder head to make sure that everything is cut nice for the valves. Valves get a good seat on there. A really nice cut right there. I'm not sure if the camera's gonna pick it up from this angle, but you can see the rainbow finish. Super well done, the cut. And this is obviously for LS Vtec, so we do have the plug over here already. It's gonna be plugging up the necessary plug for when doing that. Still within its nice wear. There's barely any meat taken off of this. I do have to get the Vtec conversion plug that goes right here to actually run Vtec in it. So, or the LS Vtec plug. It's a fitting that goes right here. Oh, that's that. Goes right into there. And we weren't sure if we were going to do Vtec or non-Vtec in the sense of locking it or not. We decided we are going to keep the Vtec in it. So I have my solenoid, we're going to get bolted up onto here, and it's going to function like a normal Vtec motor. And everything's looking great right here. Huge thank you to SB Machine. Super happy to be able to be rocking this. We're gonna make some jam on this motor. Check it out a little bit better. That's the polishing stuff that I was telling you about earlier, guys. I could probably take like some 2000 grit to this and then do a little more polish so it comes out nice. But yeah, just some basic stuff that we had done. This is the hand porting that I did. It's not very bright right now. Oh, we also have bronze guides all around in the front and back. Show you the intake side. Nice guides. I ended up putting the rocker assembly back in. I'm not gonna include this in the video because there already are a couple videos covering this on how to exactly do that. It's actually really simple. You'll have the rocker, like the whole rod that goes in through this side, one by one. You put in the rocker assembly. The center one, which obviously looks different than the other two, is the Vtec lobe. That rides on the LMA, which is the SuperTech LMAs that we put in. And basically it has a straight pin that goes through. And that pin then connects to the left side, which has a dowel coming out. Or not the pin, the actual rocker assembly attaches to that. And then the left one has this little spring dowel in it. And you kind of just match those up and get each set to look exactly the same. And then from here, you can actually adjust your valve flash. There are a couple videos on that, like I said, so go check those out if you want a detailed explanation. And then you put the dowels right there, as well as the center dowel, and you're pretty much good. We're not gonna assemble the full head right now in sense of the cams, because we wanna have that degreed later in the future. But we are gonna be bolting up the cylinder head today to the block, just to have it sit on there and already torqued down. That way we can put both manifolds on as well. Right now, I'm just gonna go ahead and thread in the new studs from Tube Factory. These are the titanium ones, raw finish. They're not burnt or anything. I'm not gonna put the Loctite in right now. I do wanna put some in eventually, but I have to run to the store for that. And also when I go, I wanna get some Allen keys, because you can see you can hand tighten them at the top, kind of like ARP HeadStuds. They are the same style, except these are titanium, obviously. Another cool thing that I was just realizing right now is threading in the last stud. Comes with an extra one, so that's pretty cool. An extra stud, nut, and washer. So I guess if something breaks or if you lose one or anything, there's an extra one that comes with the kit. Look at that, that is crazy. I can't wait to polish this up real quick. I'm probably not gonna do it today or anything, but you can already see my reflection a little bit, and I want it to be like mirror finish, so that's for the future. So we're here at the car. The block is almost ready to go. I went ahead and removed the clear transparent tape that we had. We've had it on there for a couple months, so it was a little bit rough to take off. Used a little brake cleaner on a micro fiber cloth towel or whatever you wanna call it. Really nice and clean, ready to go. Obviously, this is the motor that we assembled ourselves here at home, and there actually is a full build series on this if you want to check it out. And right now we're going to do a little bit of what we did last time that we put a cylinder head onto our block, which that video actually got over 200,000 views, a bunch of support. So thank you so much, you guys, for watching that video. You can refer back to it if you want. I'm going to add the link in the description. And one thing that did change from that time to this time, we're actually now using the ARP L19 studs instead of the generic off the shelf. Now these are reused. I've torqued them, I believe, a total of 3 times before, and ARP mentions that as long as you use the correct lube and there's no stretching, a couple times retorquing doesn't affect it at all. One thing that does change, like I mentioned, last time when we actually did install the head studs, we mentioned that when threading the bottom of the stud into the block, we used to use 30-weight oil, just some heavy oil to have lubrication at the threads. A lot of people said, oh, you're wrong, you shouldn't do that, this, that, and another. We chose to do just a little bit because ARP actually says on their website, and I will link it down below, on their website they say to use their specific lubricant, which we actually ordered this time. We have it the correct way, or however you want to say it. The Ultra Torque Fastener Assembly Lubricant. So what we're going to be doing on the bottom threads that go into the block, we're going to be using a small amount of the lubricant just to thread that in nicely. And then we're gonna use a a lot amount on the top when we actually put the nuts and the washers on. Before I actually start doing that, let me give you a brief overview of what we're gonna do. These are the washers. Both sides are gonna get a lot of lube, as well as on the threads right in here, as well as on the threads on the top. These are just the LS Vtec conversion dowel pins that are needed to run this head to the block. A GSR head to an LS block, properly aligned. And one thing that you will notice right here, let me line them all for you. They're all the exact same length for the L19s. If you look at the traditional LS Vtec head studs, not the L19s, they are different sized on two. I believe the center two are raised opposed to the other ones, but these are all the same length. They're pretty much universal L19 studs for B series. I could be wrong, but I know that they go for more than one motor. That's why they do that. As for head gasket, you guys know that in the past we've used a lot of Golden Eagle head gaskets, which typically is an OEM style head gasket, or an OEM head gasket. with the dowel pin holes just re-drilled a little bit bigger. This time we're going with a Chromatic head gasket, which if you're not new to the channel, you know that I haven't always been a fan of Chromatic, just because friends of mine have used it in the past. I've never personally ran it, and they've always had issues. But I'm told that because of the O-rings, the copper O-rings that we have, not to use a JE Pro Seal, which is what we wanted to use, but instead to use the Chromatic head gasket. Here's the part number if you want to check that out. You can see B18A/B with Vtec head, 84 millimeters, since that's what our piston size is. And that's the part number right there, ending with 30. So we're gonna go ahead and put that one on right there. Before I actually do that, I wanna give a quick rotation to the crank, not to get anything with the oil underneath, but I wanna add some WD-40 to the cylinder walls as well as the center ones. And since we're not doing the cams or the timing today, we're gonna leave all the pistons right at the center. So in between top and bottom dead center, everything is gonna be even on the bottom. That way there's no chance of anything coming up for it. So yeah, I'm just gonna lubricate that right now. Like I mentioned, the surface right there is already brake cleaned and nice and degreased. And this is pretty much ready to go as well. So all we really need to do is lube that those sleeves real quick. All right, I'm fresh out of WD-40 right now, but we have some PB Blaster, which is very similar. If you guys want to clown me in the comment section, go ahead. Honestly, I don't care. This is what's worked for us in the past. We're just gonna get this towel right here. We don't really need to use it. Just go like that, liberally. And I like to use with my hand. Go like this. And then we'll clean the surface again to make sure that there's no oil on the deck. Oil there as well. You could do regular engine oil as well instead of using a spray. This is just what we do. I find that I prefer that personally. You can do whatever you want, whatever makes you happy. Spin this a little more. And hopefully you guys can see a good angle. We're gonna lower this piston down as we bring up the other piston to make them all even down the center. Right there. So now they are all even. All are at center, dead center, if that's even a thing. I'm not sure to be honest, but they're all in the center of the motor. Now with a little brake clean on this cloth, just going over everything. Since I did just spray down some PB Blaster, there's some grease or oil on the surface. I'm gonna fold this over again on a clean part. Do the exact same thing. And every once in a while, you might get little tiny residue, pieces of lint or whatever. You can just take that off. Well, we're looking pretty good. Next thing's next. I'm gonna be right back with the head studs and start threading them in. Just gonna finish it off with a little bit of torque right here. Like I said, this is up to your preference. If you wanna give it that extra little bit, it's up to you. You don't have to. Just what I do. I consider this hand tight. And it's never really gave me an issue for doing it like this. Now you notice I'm basically doing it with 2 or 3 fingers at most. If you're over here on the edge of it cranking it down, that's an issue. I just like getting like this. Like that. Alright, dowel pins. Big question. Where exactly do the LS Vtec dowel pins go? Really simple. Exhaust side. At least how I do it. Exhaust side. Small side of the conversion dowel. Boom. Small side of the conversion dowel. Boom. Run it down. Make sure it actually sits in the block. Sometimes it's easy to loosen the stud. Give it some wiggle and it'll fall right in. Really simple. Dowels are in. Now we're gonna open up the head gasket. I'm gonna do my best to not touch it. My hands are fairly degreased, fairly clean, but still you wanna touch it as least as possible. I know people who put dirty head gaskets on and it works just fine. Some people say to copper spray them. In some instances we do, some instances we don't. Most important, says up. You see that right there, guys? It says up. What's that mean? Gasket goes up. Drop it right there. Fits snugly around the dowel pin. You know it's the correct one. Couple things you want to make sure. Oil passages, do they go in straight? Is that how it goes in smoothly? Does everything line up? The correct formation of everything? Do the coolant ports line up? Everything's looking great. What's the next thing that we do? We clean off the surface just like we did the block on the cylinder head, and the magic happens. There's no front end on it. We just come over here, align the head studs to the block, or to the head, excuse me, and this comes right down. Sits on the dowels, and you can feel it like click into place almost. You make sure everything's nice and flush. And we're looking pretty good right there, guys. What do you think? Cylinder head is on. We don't have to worry about timing or anything right now because there's no cams in it and the pistons are down. It's perfect right now. Next, we're gonna get this Moly lube or fastener assembly lubricant, excuse me. This is not Moly lube, this is by ARP. And we're going to drench, absolutely drench these washers right here and then set them down one by one. One thing that I've always has helped me with this, either a magnet or a screwdriver. Now I should say ahead of time, easiest way to do it, to be honest, is by fingers like this. Put a good amount on there. Drop it in. And with a screwdriver that I forgot, which is on the workbench right now, you kind of put it onto the stud, onto place. Key is to get a lot on it. The more you have, essentially, the more you have, the easier it is for it to spin, less resistance, and you can get a higher torque without damaging threads. So what I do for this, I like to pack a little bit of lube onto the threads. So once it starts threading, I can actually already have some on there. Also a messy job. Typically the lube will hold the nut for a little bit of time onto the socket, which is when I put it on, start threading. You can do this with the little brush that ARP provides. It just complicates it, to be honest though. You get dirty anyway, so you might as well just fully fledge into it, fully dive into it. So I want to say Honda from the factory asked for like 65 foot-pounds or something on head bolts, not studs, head bolts. On head studs, I think ARP says about 80. I want to say on L19s they recommend 90. I'll take this all with a grain of salt because this is just off the top of my head. And I know some people do 100. I just put these to 95 typically. And I normally go in either 3 or 4 steps. I'll start with 30, 60, and if I'm going to 95, I'll do like 80 and then 95. But typically, like, if it's 90, for example, you want to do 30, 60, 90. So it's 3 incremental or even increments. And between each torque sequence, you want to wait a couple minutes. The first to second torque sequence from 30 to 60, I typically wait a minute. It's not much, it's not that hot. But from 60 to 80 in this case, I'm gonna wait maybe 5-10 minutes. And then from 80 to 95, I'm gonna wait about 20 minutes. Basically what we're doing there is the bolt heats up when you tighten it down, or in this case the nut. And by waiting, it lets it cool down. Obviously this lubricant will assist in letting it cool faster and letting it not bind that much. It's not perfect. So we wait. My hands look awful. Like, I don't normally get this dirty when I use the brush, but I just wanted to make a point. Feeling like an idiot though. It's almost like anti-seize. Gets everywhere. Okay. So we're gonna start with our first torque sequence. What did I say we were doing, like 30? Let's go up to 30 foot-pounds. There is a torque sequence that we follow, so try to keep this in mind. If not, just find it online. It's really easy to find. We start in the center, work our way out. 1, 2, and when you're getting it to where it needs to be, you don't want to stop, because if you stop right before it clicks, the torque is going to be different. And after doing this dozens of times, you kind of get a hang of it. You don't really have to look at a torque spec sheet or the sequence. You get used to it. And to be honest, if you don't have a torque wrench, you get used to it enough and you can kind of pretty much do it by feel. All right, so that right there is 30 foot-pounds all around. We're gonna zero out the torque wrench so it doesn't stay on the load. Let this cool down for a couple minutes and be back. All right, so we're gonna go for the sequence number 2. It's been a couple minutes, it's cooled down. We were 30 last time, we're gonna do 60 now. See, I didn't like that one. The second time I came around, it clicked. I didn't like that one. If it was the final torque sequence, I wouldn't feel too happy about it. There we go. A lot of people say not to double click. I double click it, no problem, just to verify everything's at the right spec, that I didn't miss anything. If you see, I just changed the torque sequence. That's okay. Basically what you have to do, 1, 2, then you can either go 3, 4 or 3 and 4. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Basically want to do it like opposing areas so it evenly brings the head down. That's the 60. Now we are bringing it back to 0, the torque wrench, and letting it rest. This one's important. I'm gonna do about 5-10 minutes on it. Okay, 30 and 60 are down. Now I'm at 80. Let's see if we can get this third sequence in. Okay, this one I'm gonna let rest for about 20 minutes. It might not need it, but better safe than sorry. And then we'll come back for 95 foot-pounds for the final torque sequence. All right, so we are on to the final torque sequence. This is to 95 foot-pounds. This is already the scariest one because it's the one that you're afraid, oh, what if something breaks? What's gonna happen? But sometimes you just gotta send it. There we go. I went over on this one. It's okay. Going a little over on each one actually. No specific reason why, but it's all right. There we go. Let's go over them. Click, click, Click. Click. There we go. Now obviously guys, we did use a lot of that ARP lubricant, so I'm gonna take the camera off the tripod real quick and show you exactly what I'll be talking about. You'll be able to notice that right on the top of the threads right there, just a glob. My finger, I can take it out. And although this doesn't hurt anything to be in there because it doesn't really fall off, I'm gonna go ahead and take off all the excess on there, or as much as my finger can take off like that, just so there's not that floating around and whatnot. You'll notice that if you don't do this on your oil changes, there'll be a little bit of that sludge that also comes down. And no, it doesn't mean that you put too much, it just means that you have extra, guys. So don't feel bad about it. I'd rather take some off, but know that threads are nice and happy, than not put enough on and have an issue. So we did it to 95 foot-pounds of torque, and everything came out perfectly. And there we go. Okay, so this next part is probably gonna be my favorite part of the whole video today, the whole day today. I'm actually gonna put both manifolds on. I have the rear one, like I said, I already put the studs in. I have the rear one just with one nut, and now bolt up the Whitfield forward-facing intake, or headlight intake, turbo manifold. This is crazy. See if I can get a couple nuts on there. So we got the manifold bolted up. I had to add a bolt at the bottom. I'm doing studs afterwards. I just have a through bolt right now, a 12mm holding it so it's flush, and we're getting the clearance figured out right now. It is cleared to the frame, but that's because we added the extra plate, or it's close to the frame, excuse me, because we added the extra frame right there, and the mid plate isn't bolted up yet. We're gonna bolt this down and then bring it up and get that how it needs to be. But everything is looking pretty good right here. God, this looks beautiful. By the time I upload this video, you guys will already have seen this on Instagram, but this reveal is insane. And I did put earlier the front bumper just to kind of see how everything would be, but it really just doesn't do it justice since the old fenders don't have anything to line up with the bumper, and I normally just did it by zip ties. It's not gonna do it the placement justice right there. But man, this thing is looking gorgeous. That SB machine cylinder head and the Whitfield turbo manifold VS Racing turbo, and the skunk manifold right there. Look at that 90mm throttle body. This thing's insane. And we are looking pretty good right there. All right, so we got Jesse's daily right here. The wagon Volvo pulled up, the IS back in the garage, and the Integra pretty much sleeping for the night. This is sitting obviously lower than it will. But we got just some cloth right now covering the head since the valve cover is off. I don't know if I mentioned or showed it earlier. Let me know what you guys think we should either paint or powder coat this. I'm in the midst of taking off all the old paint with some aircraft paint remover. It had like 6 layers of paint on here, guys. It's crazy. It's finally getting back to the OEM paint right underneath. And we can finally get this cleaned up and whatnot. But tomorrow I'm gonna give it another coat of the aircraft paint remover. And with the pressure washer over there, I'll actually just pressure wash it and it'll be nice and clean. But yeah, we are pretty much all set right here, guys. I hope this video was informative for the ARP HeadStuds installation with this, as well as the LS Vtec stuff. And if it wasn't informative, if you already knew how to do that, I hope you guys enjoyed the video of the install for the actual turbo manifold and everything. This thing just looks insane. Shout out also to all the people who are showing support, love, all the companies, especially from the West Coast. We've gotten a lot of support from the West Coast recently, and I just want to say from the bottom of my heart, thank you guys so much. It really means a lot for these great companies with such big names to actually be investing in myself. and it really feels well. I really appreciate it, guys. That being said, if you guys haven't checked out the social media pages for SB Machine or Whitfield or VS Racing, please go check them out. I'm gonna link them all down below, as well as the videos that I mentioned earlier. And that's pretty much it for the video today. Throughout this video, when we were recording, I also actually got another package from an East Coast company, which we're gonna be opening up tomorrow. So I should be making a video on that soon, so stay tuned. If you aren't already subscribed, make sure to hit the subscribe and notification bell. Jesse and me are gonna be eating pizza in the meanwhile, and we'll see you on the next video. Peace.